Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Chris with another quick review for you today. As we head into the weekend, or now in the weekend, uh, I had the opportunity to pick up Labo VR for the Nintendo Switch, which, if you're not familiar with the concept behind it, it is a full VR experience with some caveats, which I'll talk about. And I've got a couple of the other Labo kits, the early ones, which include the fishing set, the piano or the keyboard and all that kind of stuff. But when Nintendo announced they were making VR, or kind of going into the world of VR, it made a lot of sense to me because I thought with the design of the Switch, it's perfect. You can slide it into a VR headset and make it work, despite the fact that the screen is only 720p, which does limit some of the things that it's able to do in terms of the resolution and all that stuff. But what they really announced that caught my attention, because I really wasn't necessarily going to jump into this at the outset, was that they are releasing an update in the not too distant future in which you can play Breath of the Wild in its entirety, apparently, in VR. So that caught my attention, knowing that I could get the starter set for $40 and check it out. So I did that. I got the starter set. I put the kit together, and this is what you have. Nintendo Labo VR. It really didn't take long at all, maybe 25-30 minutes to make this component of it. But in having the starter set, I also had the blaster, which came with that, right? And so just for some comparison here, this was a much more involved thing. It took about 2 to 2.5 hours to put this together. So basically my entire morning, my Saturday morning. But I did that component of it mainly for my kids. I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, or actually a 5-year-old now. He just had a birthday. And, in sort of assessing this and evaluating how well it works, I thought it wouldn't really be fair for only me to talk about it. So I did get a brief bit from my 8-year-old, Jonah, to see what he thought about it. Because really with Labo, it's intended for kids, mainly. And the way this is designed, it's not set up for long periods of play. Now, just for a little bit of context with my VR experience, I have had PSVR. I have Oculus Go, which is a great, if you're looking for budget VR or entry-level VR that still gives you a fantastic immersive VR experience, but is not going to break the bank, this is the way to go, in my opinion, Oculus Go. There's an Oculus Quest coming out soon, which is a slightly beefier version of this that I think sits between the Rift and the Go in terms of specs. But Go is a really good entry point, and I've used it pretty regularly. I would say every couple of weeks I might sit down and watch a movie in VR through the Netflix app or through Hulu, or I might play a game, as there are some good games on the Oculus Store. Now, one thing you may notice when looking at the Go versus the Switch VR is that there is no head strap. So when you're playing this, you really have to hold it up to your face for any extended period of time, and that makes it not the most comfortable thing in the world. Your arms do start to get tired after a while. I think that limits how much this can do, but I'm sort of looking at this beyond the fact that it's designed for kids as kind of a proof of concept thing for Nintendo. They're trying to figure out, in my opinion, especially when updates for Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, which is going to have some VR mini games, are released, whether or not this is something people are interested in. Just based on the internet's reaction to Labo VR, especially when they announced the updates for Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, people seem to be interested in that. And so I think Nintendo would do well to explore this further and to release a legitimate headset. One that's got a head strap, one that doesn't require you to hold it up to your face for long periods of time. So in playing with this, just with the headset and without the blaster, there are some mini games you can play. But the issue is they want you to hold it up to your face and use a Joy-Con in one hand while doing it. And it's really cumbersome to do that. I will say the VR immersion is good. It's much better than I thought it would be. And it actually looks pretty clear. It doesn't look as good as the Oculus Go, and it doesn't look as good as PSVR or things that are more high-end beyond that, obviously. But it looks good, and it is legitimate VR. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world. The blaster games work, and it's fun. The blaster is a fun peripheral, and I liked it, and I found myself getting kind of competitive doing the mini games that are there to try and get the high score with my children. But I will say, it requires you to sort of pump the action on it, I guess you would call it, to reload before you push the button, the fire button, in the game, and sometimes it wouldn't register that I had done that, and the button would sort of get stuck. So that could be user error, that could just be shoddy construction on my part, but I did find that to be a little problematic. But beyond that, again, Nintendo impresses with just their innovation and their construction, so it works. But from an adult's perspective, it's okay. I'm not going to use it over Oculus Go, of course, and I don't know that I'll use it for any more than 10 minutes at a time. When Breath of the Wild comes out, I'll probably have another quick video to talk about my thoughts on that, because that's really why I got this. I want to see what that's like for maybe longer periods of time. And the only thing I can think to do with that is just maybe lay down on a couch or recline in a chair and just sort of let it rest on your face and play that way. So from my perspective, from an adult's perspective, I would say it's maybe a 6 out of 10 in terms of, again, being a proof of concept. It could use a lot of work, in my opinion. It's not perfect. It's a little cumbersome, but it is VR. It is legitimate VR, and I think Nintendo is onto something if they can make this a more comfortable experience for Switch owners, especially if the rumored Switch Pro comes out. Again, my son had something to say about it. He thought it was one of the coolest things in the world, and so here are his thoughts, briefly.
Hi, Siri. Whoa!
Jen, what do you think about that?
That's so cool.
And so, you can just sort of see what he thinks about it and how he sort of responded to it, which is to say that 8-year-olds maybe will love it. He loved it. I had a test demographic in my house, and he seemed to really like it. So, for $40, if you have children, I would say get the starter kit. I wouldn't spend any more than that on it, though, honestly. If you want to get into VR, I would say go with something like the Go, which is more expensive, but it is a much more comfortable, much more in-depth VR experience. So Nintendo's onto something. Hopefully they can keep improving it, and we'll see what they do. So that's it for today. Catch you guys soon.